Hi, everyone, and welcome back into another episode of the podcast. It is so nice to be back here with you after a little bit of a break, and I'm going to share with you why there's been a little bit of a break between episodes. But I'm so happy to be back. I have a beautiful new fresh energy that I feel like I'm bringing into my work, into the podcast now after all that I've just journeyed. And I'm really, excited to be back here connecting with you and sharing with you on the podcast. So I'm going to be talking today about the topic of navigating the feminine descent and navigating challenging seasons of life. And I want to speak with you about this today because this is what I've been going through. And as I'm coming out the other end of it, as I'm emerging from this big season of feminine descent and this big season of really having to meet and be with some very challenging experiences, I am really gaining a lot of insight. I'm gaining a lot of wisdom. And I have some pieces I want to share with you around how to navigate these types of seasons. And some ways that we can journey challenging times of life and really navigate these seasons where we're being called on a deep descent into ourselves. Navigate these with ease, navigate these with grace, navigate these in a way where we can actually gain the wisdom, the benefit, the blessing of these experiences. Because typically when we're moving through something hard, something challenging, something difficult, when life is really giving you something that doesn't feel good, that isn't what you want, that is uncomfortable, we can tend to fight a lot against these experiences and these seasons of life. We can make them wrong. We can become victimized by them. We can feel like, why is life doing this to us? And when we're in that mentality, we are not able to gain the wisdom, the blessings, the transformation, the beauty that this experience is trying to deliver to us. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. And when I talk about the descent, right? And if you've listened to my podcast, you would have heard me talk about the descent before. And the descent is really the feminine path. It's really, journeying the feminine is about going deeper inwards, deeper down, descending deeper into ourselves and our bodies, descending deeper down into, really meeting our human experience. But when we're called into seasons of descent, and I'm saying this is a season because it is a season, it's not something that's going to last forever. Life is always cycling. Life is always moving through seasons. We as the feminine are always cycling, always moving through seasons. And occasionally we will meet these seasons of challenge, of hardship, of difficulty, of pain, of grief, of deep descent, where we're being invited to go down and in, to go in and down, where life asks us to come and meet and feel and be with some of the deeper, darker, harder emotions, sensations, and experiences of life. We're being invited to descend down into meeting and feeling and being with sensations of pain, sensations of loss, times of grief or heartbreak or hardship. We are being invited to go down and in to meet our fears, to really face off with fears that are maybe holding us back or keeping us small. We are invited to go down and in to really meet off with and face off with and meet aspects of our false self, aspects of our ego identity, old parts of ourself that are ready to die, that are ready to be released. And we are being called down and into these seasons of life where we might find ourselves in the deep, dark unknown, in the void, in the in-between, in a huge transition, where we feel lost, where we feel confused, directionless, and we are in the mystery. And this is a big part of the feminine journey, is being able to navigate the descent. And I teach it a lot in my work. And life will bring you times where you are being invited to go on a journey of descent and to descend down deeper into yourself. And this is actually where you practice more of the feminine arts, the feminine way of living. You're invited into surrender, into trust, into feeling, into opening, into being receptive to what life is bringing, even if you don't want it. Okay, so maybe you are currently in a season like this. Maybe you've recently been in a season like this. Maybe you can think of times in your life where you've been in seasons like this. I've journeyed a lot of them, and I've become more and more skilled at how I journey them. And the more skilled you become, the more easeful they become to move through. Okay, so we can actually become a more skilled practitioner at navigating these seasons and times of life. And this is where we really start to gain the benefit from them. They no longer become something that we resist, we hate, we fight against, we become victimized by. They become something that they're a gift. They're a gift. Okay, so the catalyst for a season of descent in our lives is often a challenging time in life, a challenging life event. Could be the loss of a loved one, could be the end of a relationship, a heartbreak, or a deception, or a time where you felt rejected or you had to let go of a relationship. Could be the loss or ending of a job. It could be the unraveling of something in your business, or your career. Could be a friendship. It could be, some challenging life event. It could be a health concern. It could be a health challenge that you experience, a diagnosis, a period of being in pain, in illness, in struggle. It could be a time where you reach burnout. It could be the season where you enter motherhood. There's a lot of things in life that catalyze us into more challenging times in life and invite us to get better and better at learning how to navigate them and how to meet and be with the deeper, darker, more uncomfortable aspects of life and feel that and journey that in ourselves. Now, as women, we are always actually moving through seasons of descent every month. And then we can be moving through seasons of descent in our life when life brings us something hard. People in my life I'm watching have just gone through some really big challenging things. I've just gone through a really, really challenging experience that catalyzed me to journey a descent. But every month as women, we are actually journeying a descent. So the whole second half of our menstrual cycle is a descent. Thinking about, we rise from our bleed towards ovulation, which is an ascension, moving up towards a peak point. It's like when the moon moves from being a new moon to a full moon, but then the moon begins to move from a full moon back down, becoming smaller as it becomes a new moon, and it descends. The cycle descends, and we descend after ovulation down towards our bleed. So in the second half of our cycle, we are journeying a descent every month. And when you descend and you start to go deeper, you start to meet things inside of you that are there that you haven't been feeling or facing. So imagine you're just moving down in your awareness, in where you're at, right? You're moving down and you're meeting the layers of things that are there. And this is why women experience premenstrual symptoms and emotions, and all these things come up in their premenstrual window. Because as they start to descend deeper into their bodies and into themselves, they start meeting all of the unresolved emotions or triggers or wounds or feelings that are there inside of them that they haven't been dealing with for that whole menstrual cycle. And now they're being asked to witness it, to feel it and face it as they descend towards their bleed. So women, we have an invitation every month to become more artful in navigating the descent. in navigating seasons where we are slowing down. We are going inwards. We are coming into what feels like maybe darker, heavier, deeper, more uncomfortable sensations and emotions and experience of life, right? And so every month you're invited to become more skillful in your descent. And the more you can do that, then when life brings you these types of things, you can journey them artfully as well. So, in our life, like I said, there's things that catalyze a big season of descent in our life. Just like, I'm currently in winter here on the Gold Coast, and that is more of a descent, going inward, slowing down, becoming internal. Everything becomes darker, colder, more contracted. That's more of a descent, whereas summer is more of an ascent and an expansion, a rising and an opening, a blossoming, right? It's different energies. So what I want to offer you is some ways to navigate seasons of descent in your life, to navigate challenging seasons of life from an embodied and a feminine approach, and a way where when life brings you something hard, when life brings you something challenging, when things feel heavy or dark or difficult or depressing or uncomfortable, you know how to journey that. And that's I'm going to offer you some steps that will help you in moving through this, because this is stuff we can't avoid. When I was more disconnected from my feminine and my whole life was about ascent, and I wanted to ascend up into alignment with my soul. I always wanted to be feeling light and upbeat and positive and high vibe. I didn't want to feel negative emotion. I didn't want to feel pain. I didn't want to meet any deeper, darker parts of myself. When triggers or wounds or emotions came up, I just wanted to avoid them and think positively on top of them. That was when I was really in this season of ascent and trying to stay high vibe and feeling good all the time, which is so unrealistic. It's like wanting to be in summer all year round. There's seasons and cycles that we need to learn to embrace as part of being human. And it wasn't until I went on my feminine path that I really learned how to start to get more comfortable and familiar and feel more safe and skilled in meeting deeper, darker sensations and parts of myself, and not actually seeing one as better than the other, and not trying to fight against or avoid when those deeper, heavier, darker, or more uncomfortable things would come up, right? And so I just want you to notice in yourself, are you someone who, when hard things happen, when uncomfortable emotions come up, when there's triggers, when there's fears, when there's wounds, when things feel a little heavy, when you feel flat, when you feel a bit depressed, when you feel a bit lost, are you always trying to pull yourself out of that? Are you always trying to get yourself as quickly as possible back to feeling good again? I used to do that by just drinking a cup of coffee every time I felt a little flat or a little sad, or putting on really high energy music and trying to get myself high vibe again, or trying to think positively, or going for a run, basically just trying to run away from what I was feeling, right? Are you someone that resists that? And if so, I'm going to offer you some things to actually start to get better at opening. Because this is the other thing as well, and I touched on this before, that can happen, is we can either be in this place where we're just constantly avoiding and trying to escape anything that feels heavier or more uncomfortable or more difficult, or any aspect of our darkness, our shadows, our flaws, our weaknesses, things we don't like about ourselves, right? Or we become victimized and we drown in those experiences. So when life brings us something hard, or something doesn't work out, a relationship doesn't work out, you don't get the job you want, you lose some money, you have a health crisis, you begin to become so victimized by that experience. Like, this is happening to me. I am a victim to this. Why is this happening to me? Life must hate me. Why is everyone else getting what they want and I'm not? What's wrong with me? And you begin to feed on stories about yourself. It begins to validate certain beliefs about yourself that you just begin to wallow in. And you might start to drown and collapse here. You might just begin, a lot of emotional eating. You might just want to give up on everything. You might be like, what's the point? You might just wallow over and over and repeat over and over inside your own mind all the terrible things that have happened. You get completely lost here and you don't know how to pull yourself out. So they're the two places we can end up going. And I'm going to offer you a bit of a middle path here. Okay. All right. So the season that I just went through over the past 2 months is honestly one of the most challenging things I've ever journeyed in my entire life. And I've had really difficult seasons of descent. I remember 5 years ago, this was one of my first seasons of descent when my father passed away. He passed away very unexpectedly. No warning, no notice, just gone. And that was probably my very first experience of a big, deep, dark descent and life bringing me something so unbelievably challenging. A few years later, I journeyed a big descent when I began struggling with insomnia. And no matter what I did, I could not seem to overcome this pattern, and this pulled me down deep. This was where I really started doing my trauma healing work. This is where I had to really go in, down and in, right? And begin meeting and feeling and facing off with these deeper parts of myself that I'd spent my whole life running from. And yeah, my business unraveled, my income declined, everything fell apart. And I was really forced to go on a huge healing journey. Yeah. And then this recent challenge hasn't lasted as long because I think I've journeyed it really artfully and in a really conscious and empowered and beautiful, open, trusting, surrendered way. But it has been an intense 2-month portal of some of the deepest heartbreak, loss, grief, pain, being in so much unknown, having to journey so many heavy emotions, getting to some of the, we like bottom out, right? We feel like we hit rock bottom, and it can be so difficult. And I'm not going to share the specifics of what I've journeyed. I think at a later date I might, but I'm keeping it quite private at this stage. But just know, like, this was really, really hard, like so hard. And I was reflecting on how I journeyed this. And so this is what I'm going to offer you. Okay. The first thing is, when life is bringing you these things, really challenging experiences, things you don't want, things that feel painful, things that feel like loss, like grief, like life is taking something away from you, like things are unraveling, like you are in the void, you are lost. The invitation is to practice acceptance. And this might take you a little bit of time to get to, and that's okay. But we have to come to a place where we can accept and be with and open to what life is bringing. Now, acceptance doesn't mean you like it. Acceptance doesn't mean you want more of it. Acceptance doesn't mean you're saying, yes, life, thank you. It means you are just letting it be. Like, if it's happening, it's happening. And you can either accept that it's happening and just be with the fact that it's happening, or you can be fighting against it and resisting it, saying, why is this happening? This shouldn't be happening. And making it really wrong. This is wrong. This is bad. How do I control this? How do I get things back under control? How do I stop this happening? The more you go into resistance, the more you're going to go into struggle. It's like running in quicksand, right? The faster you try to run, the more you're going to sink. It's that type of experience when you are in a challenging season of life and when you're on a descent. Like you're just going to descend further, but it's not going to be comfortable. So, like I said, you may not be able to get to acceptance when it very first happens. It can take some like processing the emotions before you can get to acceptance. But acceptance is a state of openness. And this is really what the invitation is from a feminine perspective. The feminine is always being invited into openness. The feminine is an open, receptive energy. And truly being in your feminine power and in your feminine in these situations is being willing to open to what life is bringing, receive it, meet it, feel it, and allow it, even if it is incredibly uncomfortable, versus closing. Because when you close, you go into resistance, you're fighting, you're making it wrong, and you're shutting down. When you start to close and shut down internally, you cannot get the medicine that this experience is bringing. You cannot be alchemizing the emotions. You won't be moving through the transformation that this is inviting you into. You are just shut down, collapsed, closed. I hate this. I don't want this. Make this go away. Make this stop. So that is the first practice, lesson, invitation, is can you open? And open just means breathing deep, being present, meeting it, feeling it, witnessing it, accepting it, letting it be, letting it happen. Stop trying to control and hold on and just really let the process unfold, okay? And this does ask for deep trust and deep surrender. I'm not saying any of this is easy, but this is how we can move through these seasons so much faster and so much more effortlessly, okay? So openness, acceptance, like almost let yourself be deeply penetrated by this experience. Let it crack you open wide. Let it break you. Let it permeate every part of you, yeah? Ooh, like that is the feminine. That is the feminine, is the willingness to do that, okay? The second invitation of the descent of challenging life experiences is to feel the emotions that this is bringing up. Let yourself go to the depths of the emotions that are coming up. Let yourself fully feel and meet and move through and be with the pain, the heartache, the heartbreak, the grief, the loss, the hurt. Yeah. And over time, the more that you can feel these emotions, the greater your capacity becomes to hold it. And the more that you can hold these emotions and these sensations, the more that there is nothing left to be afraid of. Because so often what we are most afraid of when something difficult happens, or we're afraid something difficult will happen, or we're afraid we're going to go into a challenging season, we're not so much afraid about what's going to happen. We're afraid of how it's going to make us feel. We are afraid of what we are going to have to feel. But if you know that no matter what emotions come, you can feel them, you can meet them, you can hold them, and you will still be okay, then there's nothing to be afraid of. Do you understand that? There's nothing to be afraid of, because mostly we're afraid of sensation. We're afraid of emotions. We're afraid of pain. But every time you journey the feminine descent, like every time you journey your menstrual cycle and you go down into your bleed and there is pain and there's discomfort and there's maybe deep, dark emotions coming up, every time you can journey that, you're expanding your capacity to hold that. It is widening you. It is dilating you. And this is what the feminine is here to experience. She's here to feel it all. So whatever emotions come up, and I know a lot of women can be really afraid of their emotions, that they're going to drown in them. And you only drown in them if you don't fully feel them. You drown in them if you get in there and then you start to get stuck. You get victimized, you shut down. If you can truly open, let yourself sob, cry, rage, hit pillows, scream, whatever you need. Over these past couple of months, I processed deep, deep grief. And that grief comes right from the bottom of your heart. If you've ever processed grief, it feels like your heart is being broken in two. But I've journeyed grief enough times now to know that I can meet grief. I can feel grief. I can hold grief, and I will be okay. I'm not afraid of it anymore. And that's the invitation that comes with really meeting these deeper emotions. So let yourself feel every single emotion that comes up. The next step is to really be in your body. Really be in your body. Now, again, you can easily get stuck in your head. When life brings you challenges, when you're being called to descend down into the body, you can be like, no, I don't want to go into the body. I want to stay up in my head because I feel in control up here. I can analyze things. I can be figuring things out. I can be making sense of things. When you are truly on a journey of descent, I'm telling you now, nothing is going to make sense. It's not meant to make sense. It is not meant to make sense. You are actually meant to be able to come into a time where nothing makes sense, where everything is confusing, where you're like the caterpillar turning to a butterfly. You are in the mush. You are in the cocoon, in the mush. Because every cycle of descent is taking you on a metamorphosis. It is taking you on a transformation. It is rebirthing you. It is inviting parts of you to die so new parts can be reborn. And as you are in that cocoon turning to mush, nothing is going to make sense. Everything's going to feel chaotic and like you're in the void. Because you're in a big transition. And you need to allow yourself to go through that. The only way you come out the other side is you go through it. So it's so important to be in your body. Get into the sensation. Get out of the story, whatever story you have about what is going on, and get into your body. Get into the emotions. Get into the sensations. Let yourself feel. Move this energy through your body. I recently took myself through a really big embodiment practice. I shared a little snippet of it on my Instagram stories where I was rebirthing from my descent. I really was feeling myself ascending out the other side, and I put on this music, and there was this fierce alchemical process happening through my body. I was feeling everything, and it was transmuting through my body into power. And that is really what we're asked to do. Get into our body, feel, move our body, play music, stretch, open, get everything transmuting through the body. That is how you will transform, and that is how you'll emerge in your power. All right, the next piece here is when you are in the void. So like I said, you're going to hit a void. And so I want you to think about actually a circle, okay? And if you're watching this on video, you'll see my fingers drawing a circle, but otherwise just imagine a circle. When you're at the top of the circle, right at the top, you are beginning to descend down one side, right? And you are going to hit the bottom of the circle. So when you're at the top of the circle and you're descending down, you're on your descent, and eventually you hit right at the bottom of the circle. This is your bottom out point. This is your, what we would kind of say, dark night of the soul, breaking point. You're fully bottoming out at the bottom of your descent. That's where you're in the deepest, darkest part of the void. That is where you are in the unknown. You are right down in this fertile unknown of complete death at times. Like parts of you, it feels like parts of you have died, or maybe you're facing off with an actual death that's happened in your life in some way, an ending, a closure, a letting go, right? Now, when you hit that bottom and when you are in the void, when you are in the complete unknown, let yourself be there. Again, get better at holding the void. holding the unknown, not needing to know. Get to a space where you don't need to know what's next, where you don't need to know what you're doing tomorrow, where you don't need to know what next week is going to look like. That will be revealed to you as you gradually begin to ascend out the other side, out of this circle, right? Up the other side of the circle, back up towards your ascent point, your top point, right? All that clarity will come. It will come through your willingness to hold the unknown and the void and be in the complete unknown before the next steps are revealed. And you especially want to do this because whatever is coming after your descent is different to what you've had before. It's new and it's different. And if you're in your head through this whole process, you're going to try to just recreate what you had before. You want to let what you had die, whatever it is. Okay, because the descent is where parts of us come to die. The descent is where our false self comes to die. The descent is where we come to release and let go of what we have outgrown, to meet aspects of our false self that we have been operating from that are no longer serving us. And we let them fall off us here at the bottom of the descent. We let them burn in the ashes, become ashes, and leave our body, leave us. And then we emerge from the bottom of the descent, renewed, reborn, rebirthed. Yeah. A more aligned, more empowered, more clear, more congruent, more authentic, more true version of ourselves. And so every experience that takes us on a descent, right? Whether it's a relationship ending, a person in your life passing away, your business unraveling, you're losing your job, your health falling apart, whatever it is, there's deep soul lessons in that. There's a deep opportunity to look within at yourself and really see what has been out of alignment. Life won't take something from you unless it's meant to go. And we don't know why necessarily, but actually the more, there's so much wisdom in the descent. Like when a woman is on her bleed, she is the most intuitive, she's the most tapped in, she's the most receptive, and she's the most wise. And that is where she goes on her descent to extract the wisdom from the last cycle of like the cycle she just journeyed through, her 28-day roughly menstrual cycle. And so when we are in the void, there's so much wisdom, so much gold, so much insight to come through, especially if we're in that place where we have completely surrendered. We're completely open. We're like, I am broken. I am cracked open. And what are you trying to show me, life? What are you trying to show me? What are you wanting me to see? What do you want me to learn? What do I need to let go of here? And what is now ready to emerge? Who am I now ready to become out the other side? So let yourself be in the unknown and let yourself completely bottom out. And I know that's so hard. Like nothing in our society teaches us to bottom out. It's always like, no, make sure you take some medication if you're feeling down, or, if you're not feeling good, like there's a problem, you should go see someone. We're very praised and celebrated and validated in our society for being happy and positive and busy and productive. It's not really modeled, to be in these seasons where we're in the mush of life. We're falling apart. We're transforming. We're bottoming out. We are grieving. We are heartbroken. We are facing off with our wounds, our fears, our traumas, our pains, right? We are descending deep into our body. And that's primarily because this is the feminine path, and the feminine is not modeled and celebrated in our society, not revered. But this is the feminine path, okay? This can sound like heavy and big, and at times it is, but I'm really trying to help you see there is so much gold. There's so much gold in your ability to do this. I've talked about the descent before, I think, when I talked about expanding your capacity to receive. And every single time you go on a descent journey, you are expanding your capacity to receive because you are opening more, you are surrendering more, and you're holding more and more sensation. The more sensation you can hold in your body, the more sensation you can hold in your life. And everything you're wanting to manifest and call in is just a sensation. That partner, of all that love you want to receive from this person in your life, that's a sensation. A sensation of love, a sensation of connection, a sensation of provision, of being wanted, of being desired. Money is just a sensation of abundance, of goodness, of provision, of receivership. So challenging seasons of life expand our capacity to hold sensation, which is why I've always found when I emerge out of them, I emerge into the greatest expansion. So much abundance, so much beauty, so much magic. And when you can truly journey the descent correctly, your ascent out the other side will be magnificent. It will be magnificent. And people will be like, whoa, what just happened to her? Yeah, because you went through the transformation, you went through the rebirth, and you expanded your capacity to hold more and more goodness. All right, the final pieces of navigating your descent. So you don't need to journey this alone. If you are going through a season of descent, if you are in a challenging season of life, you do not need to journey this alone. One of the most beautiful things I did over the past couple of months was share with people. I shared with the closest people in my life what I was going through, which was incredibly vulnerable and incredibly difficult. But it allowed me to receive so much support. I have been so held, so loved, so taken care of through this whole process because of my willingness to be vulnerable, my willingness to let people know where I was at, my willingness to be broken in front of the people in my life and bring my messiness, my pain, my grief, my challenge, that feeling of being lost, and just let people witness me in that. Let people hold me in that. Let people see the part of me that doesn't have it together all the time. And I have been so held, like homemade meals delivered at my door, flowers delivered at my door, gift boxes delivered to my door, friends dropping over to see me, people showing up, sending me handwritten notes, checking in on me daily with voice messages. So supported. Okay, so you don't need to journey this alone. Don't isolate yourself. Be vulnerable. Share with people what you're going through. Let people hold you. Let people see you. Okay, the big part of it. And then the final piece is, like I've just been saying, once you reach the bottom of your descent, when you can take on all these lessons, you can open, you can accept what's here. You can feel all the emotions. You can surrender into the experience. You can trust that there's some reason this is happening, even if it makes zero sense to you. You can get out of your head. You can stay in your body. You can let yourself be in the unknown. You can just let yourself really meet everything that's here. You can let parts of yourself die that you realized were attached to those things that you were letting go of. And as you let go of those things, you let go of the parts of yourself that maybe found a sense of worthiness or identity in those things. Or you can just let parts of yourself die that you've outgrown, that are no longer in alignment with who you're here to become. When you can do that, and imagine, like I said before, there's this circle, and you're at the top of the circle, you're moving down, you hit the bottom of the circle. What happens as you continue to move forward? You start to go up the curve of the circle, and it starts to move upwards. And you start to ascend again. You will naturally start to emerge out from this descent and you'll start to feel lighter. You'll start to feel like yourself again, but in a new way. You'll start to feel like you can move forward, but with new insights. You'll start to feel new parts of you coming online. You're starting to emerge like the butterfly breaking out of the cocoon and beginning to emerge now as your new self. And I can't tell you how reborn, renewed, and transformed I feel after this season of descent. Like when I was in this is one of the shittiest things I've ever experienced. It was horrible. And when I was in it, I was like, is this ever going to end? I'm going to be in this forever. This is so painful. But I've started to emerge, right? Because as you just keep going through, the circle starts to curve upwards and you start to come out of the descent. And this is where you start to rise again. This is where you naturally start to rise, and you rise in a new way. And if you've really journeyed your descent, you will rise more empowered. You will rise stronger. You will rise with new insights, new learnings. You would have reclaimed new parts of yourself. You would feel cleansed of things you've been holding on to and ways you've been trying to be that were so outdated. And you will emerge brand new. And as I'm coming out of my descent, I'm probably about a week or two out of it now as I'm recording this, I am so on fire. I am so lit up. I feel so creative. I've got so many new insights. I feel like I've just downloaded this whole new vision that I didn't even have access to before. I feel more clear in how I want to use my energy. I feel more attuned to who I really am. I feel on fire. And I feel stronger because I know no matter what life brings me now, I've just expanded my capacity to hold that. There's nothing for me to be afraid of now. If I journey something like this again, okay, I can handle it because I've handled it before. And I tell you what, the deeper you can descend, my love, the higher you will rise. And I am rising so high. I am rising so big. I am rising in a way that I could not have risen had I not just journeyed this descent. Yeah, I am transformed. I am reborn. And that's the gift of these seasons of life. This is the gift of pain, of challenge, of hard times. So I hope what I've offered you here will bring you comfort. If you're listening to this in a time of life where you're going through something really hard, I hope this is supportive. If you're listening to this at a time where you've just come out of a season like that, or you can look back on times where you have experienced those seasons, maybe you can see where there's an opportunity for you to work on how you navigate these times if they ever come again. But I hope this has been supportive. It feels so good for me to be back, to be bringing you my voice, my energy, my presence, and this new energy that I'm feeling. So thank you for being tuned in, my love, to this episode. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I look forward to bringing you more episodes very soon. If you love this episode, if you love Awaken Radio, make sure you are subscribed. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can subscribe on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure you're subscribed so you're not missing an episode. If you love Awaken Radio, if you love what I'm sharing, come and leave me a review. You can leave a review and some feedback on an episode on Spotify. You can give me a 5-star rating and a written review on Apple Podcasts. You can leave me a beautiful comment on my YouTube. Whatever it is, I would so appreciate it. And if you know someone who is going through a challenging season of life, send this episode on to them. Yeah, send this as a form of support and offer them some beautiful ways they can navigate what they're going through, because nothing in life ever goes wrong. Everything is happening for us, not against us. And when we can take that perspective, we can really get the blessings of every experience. Thank you so much for being tuned in today, and I look forward to talking to you again next time.